and welcome to Hero Power. This is episode number 128, and I am your host, Avantes. As always, I'm joined by my co-hosts, Zeroshio.
I'm happy, I'm healthy, and I'm ready to go.
Whoa. Somebody,
That's right.
Somebody give him
Something
some
new.
decaf or something.
This is
Right.
caffeine free, so I'm not even having caffeine. I can't have sugar, but I feel healthy, so that's...
There you go. That's all you need in life. And
That's
for
right.
Sika.
What's up? I busted my diet today. I'm not happy with myself, but I feel satisfied.
There you
Yeah, I
go.
busted mine too. We always bust a diet on Wednesdays because it's raid night for the ladies in the house in World of Warcraft, and it's show night, so we always pick up pizza or something. So having a little more carbs than I'm supposed to, but I'm checking my blood sugar, so we're good to go.
Me too. I had more carbs than I was supposed to. I saw, I verified that it was cheat night, and once it was cheat night, I was just like, bread. I can have bread. So
Well,
I went ham on some breadsticks. I mean, that bag is
cheese?
gone.
Oh yeah, okay.
Nice.
Ham is. I got you. No, we do pizza, and then I get the thin crust, light sauce, so there's not a lot of sugar, so it's not too bad. But I probably eat more slices than I'm supposed to. Well, let's get going. We got a lot to do.
All right.
We do have a lot to talk about, and a lot of people ask us what were our thoughts on Witchwood. We've kind of been putting it off. Well, no more tonight. We are doing our Witchwood review part 1. So
Which wood?
no, that would.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay, just want to make sure. All right, but first, we last week, if you guys joined us live, we had an email from Stray Dog that we played, and then immediately after that, we had an issue with Skype crashed, and we didn't get around to really giving that email the answer we felt like it deserved. So I ended up cutting it from the audio of last week's show. We're going to redo it this week because, we love hearing from you guys, and we want to make sure everybody gets their time. So without further ado, here is Stray Dog.
Hey guys, it's Stray Dog, and I have a question I was hoping you could answer on the next episode. It's regarding the Druid card Ultimate Infestation. We've had 2 rounds of nerfs, and they've left the card completely untouched. So I'm wondering if that's intentional, if they're okay with this power level existing. If maybe the reason they're leaving it alone is because they were going to have a similar card for every class. So my question really is, if they do make that decision or that choice, what kind of crazy things do you think they'll do? What do you think these cards would look like? I went ahead and did all the classes remaining, and sent them in the emails so you can see what things I imagined, but I kept the spirit of the class in line with what their version of the card would look like. And I'm really curious to hear everybody's opinion on a few of the classes. What exactly or how outrageous would these cards really be? Thanks, guys.
All right. So he's talking about Ultimate Infestation, saying, is it too strong? Should it be looked at? Do other classes need some sort of 10 mana spell that fits in their theme that kind of does what UI does for Druid? He even mocked up some cards that I will post on our website so you guys can take a look at his ideas. But so Zeroshio, why don't you go ahead and take that first?
Yeah, and obviously at the time we got this email, we didn't have as much detail on the set as we currently have. But even with that in mind, I don't think they're going to try to put out more power levels equal to Ultimate Infestation. In the past, there's been class-specific cards, especially in certain mana costs. They've never tried to duplicate that across the board. You have something like Edwin Van Cleave, which is a 3 mana legendary in the classic set, alongside something like Tyrion, which is an 8 cost with much more on card power. But when it comes down to it, it's all class defining. So I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think personally that Ultimate Infestation needs a nerf. I think they're going to do what they always do, and they're going to release sets, especially Witchwood, to kind of take those concerns into mind. For Druid, and we'll be talking more about this later in the show, they're focusing more on power from having a larger hand size, whether it be having more resources against your opponent or just having a larger hand size in general. That kind of works against having Ultimate Infestation. So decks like that won't want Ultimate Infestation because you risk overdrawing, and they're losing their endless deck mechanic in Jade Idol. So I think the meta, just like any time that a certain card is overpowered, they are going to give it a long time to flesh itself out, and sometimes even more set rotations so it balances itself out. And the only time they need to nerf is if something is just so critical that even just some fixes in the next set aren't going to fix it, i.e. patches. That's why they nerfed patches, and I also believe that's why they nerfed the minion that every time something dies, it's cheaper. They nerfed it to a 2/5. So it's not even played anymore. So
Corridor Creeper?
Corridor Creeper. Yeah, that's it. But I think
we were just going to let you hang.
Yeah, I see that. Y'all just looked at me like I'm stupid.
No, we were just like, he'll get it.
It's my brain wasn't catching up. But yeah, I think they'll fix it that way, and I think we see that in the cards that they've released.
You kind of stole my thunder a little bit with that one. I also agree that without the Endless Jade mechanic, UI is a little more dangerous now. And I also believe that without the Jade mechanic, it becomes harder to ditch cards late game if the Druid is kind of built around having them. Even the Armored Druid, I feel like with Witchwood will be a little more top heavy. But the power level of UI is also okay with me because I don't feel like Witchwood is really giving Druid as viable a legendaries as the other classes necessarily received. So I think that lack of power level in that legendary kind of also sets UI to where it's like, well, maybe I don't necessarily feel as bad about not having a great legendary this time because UI is still pretty good. I would not be surprised if UI, whereas most people were running 2 UIs pre-Witchwood, it would not surprise me to see the bulk of Druid decks start running just 1. And that's mostly because now you really do have to worry about your deck size.
Yeah, and just for the record, this is the same argument or explanation I gave last week. So you had to. I might have stolen your thunder, but you had a week to find a new storm. So no, that was when we had technical difficulties and you had dropped off the call. So
yeah, I didn't even get yours last week. So.
Yeah, I know. I'm just messing with you.
So all right, there you go. So I will post the cards that he created for the other classes just to kind of give you an idea, and you can view those over on our website at heropowerhs.com. That'll be tomorrow after 9 a.m. Eastern is when that'll be available. So, all right. Now, let's move on to the news. This past weekend, actually, we got to see the Geico Hearthstone Showdown over at PAX East. And it was a lot of fun. I watched part of it on Thursday because it started Wednesday or Thursday of last week and went through Sunday. They did a bunch of rounds of amateurs, and then when they got to the final 16, they took the top 8 amateurs and the top 8 invited pros and had them kind of go at it. And
this is something they've done in the past, and this is where Ray C made his name by coming up and winning it last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the needless to say, the finals ended up being a couple of pros: Amnesiac versus Yo It's Flow, also known as Steve.
Now, this was Amnesiac was a pro player. Steve, also known as Yoetz Flow, was actually an amateur player. He was not invited as a pro. He went through the amateur 64 person qualifying grounds, went all the way through the 64 to the top 8 of the amateurs, and then went into the round of 16 with the 8 pro players, and then battled it all the way to the finals against Amnesiac. So Steve, Yoetz Flow, did really well in the tournament, especially he had to battle more than the pros did. And there were some really good competitions. Toast, Disguised Toast was in the tournament. He played against Amnesiac, got beat, but up to that point, he pretty much dominated the field. It was a really good, fun watch. And if you go over to Geico Gaming's Twitch channel, you should be able to check the VODs. It's definitely worth a watch.
Okay, cool. So yeah, make sure you go check that out. All right. We also got our since our last episode last week, got our Witchwood release date, which is tomorrow.
Or while you're listening to this show, if you got us on the download.
Tomorrow, while you're listening to this show and opening packs, hopefully. So, the last day to pre-order is today at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's what, 2:59 a.m. Eastern. You guys can do the conversions on your own for how long you have to pre-order that. But
yeah, I wouldn't wait to the last minute. The site's
Definitely.
notorious for going down in that last hour.
Also, and this I got this later in the show notes because I just found out about it recently. We got a tweet by Mike Lowe over at ML Streams, and it was confirming rollout times via a blue post. He had a screenshot of it, and we have a link to it in our show notes. But the America's launch time is going to be tomorrow, which is Thursday the 12th, at 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, which is 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And that time pretty much lines up across the world as well. But it has all the different regions. If you're in Europe or Asia Pacific, it has those as well. So just check out that link in our show notes.
absolutely. All right, and this past Monday, we had the final reveal stream with Ben Broden Day 9. And the big takeaway from this stream, something that we had not seen or heard yet, was the new friendly challenge deck sharing feature that was teased on the stream. Now, this actually went live the next day during the patch, which we'll talk about in a second, but this is big. I don't think people maybe fully understand how important this is to a game like Hearthstone. And just for me, from an innkeeper point of view, it allows me to have new players who maybe are wanting to learn the game challenge me, borrow a deck from my extensive collection of cards, and be able to play and me be able to teach them and have fun. From a more competitive side, Zeroshio, why don't you talk on that?
Yeah, and to just clarify exactly what this is, when you challenge someone to a normal duel like you normally would, down at the bottom where normally the my collection button is, it'll say borrow deck. It allows you to borrow one of your challenged friends' deck with their approval, and then you can play them and only them with that deck. Now, again, Avanti's mentioned for new players at Firesides, this is a really good teaching tool. It allows people to try out things they don't have access to. But for more competitive aspect, you actually can make some of the decks that you might be facing and find practice partners. Now, right now, I do that by contacting one of my friends, asking if they'll practice. Hey, I need you to make this, and this deck. And they may or may not have all the cards, or they have to take the time to make the deck. They may only be on mobile. it's real cumbersome to try to practice competitively, especially for me in THL. But now I can just make those decks. Say, hey, can you help me practice? Borrow one of my decks, play, Dead Man's Hand Warrior because I'm trying to practice against it, and they can use my cards, play that deck against me. It makes practicing seamless, easy. This is a feature we did not know we wanted, but we really, really needed. What are your thoughts on it, Rasika?
Well, yeah, it's funny that you kind of led me up to that. It's like you were reading my mind on what I wanted to discuss. If you recall BlizzCon, when the Legend of the Innkeeper crew went to BlizzCon, one of the things that Espo brought up when he was on the mic was that right now in the tavern events, you really didn't have a way for a new player to come in and participate in the tavern events. And, it was something that we've run into, I know, on at least one occasion where someone come in, they just wanted to play Hearthstone and try it out for the first time, and we ended up having to stick them in the back with a computer and kind of not really force them to go through the tutorial, but if they wanted to play, they had to go through the tutorial, and then they just came out with the basic cards, and they didn't really get the full. I feel like they didn't really get the full experience, and so maybe they left thinking, "Wow, what was all that hubbub about?" That didn't really seem that awe-inspiring to me. So now these new players can come in, and then you come in, and it's like, boom. Okay, well, now I can play with this guy's deck. Well, this guy's been playing for a while, or this lady's been playing for a while. You get to play on the level. And you're like, okay, well, maybe I like this better than Magic, or maybe I like this better than whatever card game they're playing at the time. Or, they can say, well, this isn't really my thing. I don't necessarily like this. Maybe this is a little bit boring. Not sure. So maybe it's one of those things where they, this allows them to make an informed decision on whether or not they enjoy the game, and whether or not playing somewhere like in person live across from somebody is something they want to do versus playing online and not having to travel and interact. Some people, interaction is not their thing. So the game needs to appeal to those as well.
One of the really big things that I took away from this is, if somebody goes to a Fireside Gathering, say for the first time, or kind of young in their Hearthstone career, they can still play people with borrowed decks and achieve the card backs. Also, furthermore, if I have a friend that's new to the game, but they get a quest like, I need to play Murlocs, but I don't have all the Murlocs. Okay, you can do your quest against a friend now. Borrow one of my decks. I'll make a Murloc deck for you. We'll knock out this Murloc quest for you. So it helps on multiple levels, from the beginning player to somebody finding out a Fireside Gathering, to the novice player, all the way up to even the pro players are loving this feature because it allows them to prepare properly for tournaments without having to make it inconvenient for their practice partner, who might also have to have a couple pages of decks that they're practicing. So now you won't have to have that. I just make my decks, the decks I want to practice against, find a partner that's available, boom, bam, practice a couple games, and we're good to go. This is a great feature. Now, you brought up Espo's question at BlizzCon to Youngwoo. Youngwoo specifically said his sister's working on that team for the new player experience. I don't know if she had part of this feature, but if she did, good on you, Youngwoo's sister.
Yeah. So, like you said, best feature we didn't know we wanted, and here it is, available, ready for use. So go check it out. So with that, yesterday we did get the update for Enter the Witchwood. Basically, we got the deck sharing. We got the change to stealth functionality. Now, this was kind of up in the air. A little bit of controversy surrounded this because now minions will not break stealth until they attack, regardless of what happens, whether they get hit with a knife from a juggler or if some other inherent ability to the minion happens, it used to break stealth. Now, only when they attack will this happen. So we actually had a pretty good discussion about this in our patron only Discord. So, Zeroshio, what are your thoughts on the new change to stealth?
It's not popular from what I've seen on social media, but right now it's polarized both in social media and on our patron only Discord. Some people love it, some people hate it. I like this. And a lot of people say that the main reason they like it is because they don't like getting hit by a stray arcane missile or a stray knife juggler knife to break their stealth. I like it for the opposite reason, because if your knife juggler or despicable dreadlord does that damage while stealth, it takes them out of stealth. This allows those to stay in stealth, making you less vulnerable. Now, this is going to raise the power level of some cards using the stealth mechanic, like Despicable Dreadlord or more notably Baron Geddon. They will be able to do that damage at the end of turn without knocking themselves out of stealth. I think it's a good change. I think it's a positive change, but I understand both sides of it.
Rasika, what are your thoughts on the recent stealth change?
I guess I'm kind of torn because I see both sides of the argument. I do feel like this raises the power level of the stealth mechanic, which I felt like needed to happen a little bit. So I'm okay with that. I think this has a larger impact in Wild than the cards currently available in Standard, and maybe this is in preparation for some of the cards coming out next set or the set after. And we've already kind of speculated that the next set is going to be ethereal based, just based on what we've seen. And so it makes me feel like if it's ethereal based, you're probably going to see a little more focus on mechanics like stealth and something that has that arcane flavor, like perhaps invisibility on top of stealth, something that maybe the casters have, whereas the druid and the rogue tend to focus more on the stealth. Maybe we introduce an invisibility mechanic or something like that. But this, to me, this feels like a preparation modification. So I think that we won't truly see the full ramifications of this change until probably this time next year.
All right, cool. So this week's Tavern Brawl. Actually, no.
Well, one more thing.
Arena changes.
There were some arena changes I wanted to note. They're not too impactful. They moderately reduced the appearance rates of below average cards because they stopped the rarity drafting. It's now done by power level. And they also removed Humongous Razor Leaf and Ancient Watcher from the arena drafts entirely. I understand why, because by themselves they're kind of weak cards, but some people did like having those big powerful minions that were sneaky. Somebody puts them on the board and go, well, I'll just ignore that. This is arena. And sure enough, they've drafted a silence mechanic to win the game. I can understand some people missing those cards, but I think it's a good positive change. Also, with this patch did come, you can see all the Witchwood cards now. If you go into your crafting section of your collection and click Uncraftable and choose Witchwood, you'll see all the Witchwood cards. But you have to choose cannot be crafted, because right now they can't be crafted until tomorrow.
Correct. So, all right. Tavern Brawl. It's a chance encounter. This is a classic rerun of one that they've done in the past. So we heard you like random cards. Do you like random cards, Forsika?
No.
They didn't hear from you. Choose a class and get a randomly filled deck of randomly random cards. Random!
In all caps. All caps rage.
Yeah. So
I did this one and done. It was random. I got my pack and left.
I also one and done did this Tavern Brawl, got my pack, and I will open it at the end of show. Maybe. I haven't opened it yet.
I will get my pack, whether it takes me 1 or 10, but it will be one win and out for me.
All right.
Now, they've done this before. Well, just want to note this. Before the Discover mechanic, now lots of Discover cards are in it just because they're considered random. So it's actually not as random as it could be. But
Stop trying to sugarcoat it.
Not as random as random, but it could still be random. Is that what you're saying?
It is what it is.
And it's random.
All right, guys. Well, that brings us to what everybody's been waiting for, the card reviews, basically. So, we're
not doing a play portion.
We're not going to do a play portion this week. We are going to talk about these cards. We're not going to talk about all of them because obviously some of us have other things to do and we don't want to be here until launch tomorrow. So we're only going to spotlight a few cards out of each class. We're only going to do 6 classes tonight. We'll finish up the review next week with the other 3 classes and the neutral cards. So with that said, let's get to it. All right. First up is the Druid class. And here we have 2 legendaries. The Splinter Graph.
First, before we get to the actual cards, what do you guys think of Druid as a whole? Because we know it was going to lose a ton of mechanics with Jade phasing out and some of the old god stuff phasing out. Do we think Druid is dead?
I don't think they're dead, but I don't think they got enough in this set to compensate for what they lost. I think they're going to probably be somewhere around a bottom 2, upper 3 tier.
Okay.
I completely agree with that assessment. I think they'll be somewhere at the bottom of tier 2, top of tier 3. I think Armor Druid is going to be good, but not great. I think Hand Druid will struggle in this meta because I do ultimately feel like this meta will be a little too fast for it.
I think it's going to replace Warrior. It's going to be that 9th class everybody forgets about. I like Druid, and I'm going to try it, and I'm going to try to bring it out of the depths, but I think it mainly got its tools in neutral cards, which we'll talk about next week. I feel Druid's going to be at a bad spot.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of these cards that we don't think are going to help them. So Splinter Graft is an 8-mana 8/8 with a battle cry. Choose a friendly minion, add a 10/10 copy to your hand that costs 10. Now, that ability doesn't sound all that great. Yes, Druid has that ability to burst up to 10. They can, Ducharmo in chat points out combo potential with Twig of the World Tree. I don't know. I'm not, as it stands right now, knowing what we know, I'm not a big fan of this card.
Yeah, me neither. And the combo potential of Twig of the World Tree is also going to be very slow, especially since you can't rely on Medivh to replace the Twig anymore, and there is no viable way in Standard to replace your weapon. You'll have to work all 4 charges out. I was hoping that maybe they get some kind of mechanic that maybe gave their hero Wind Fury for a turn or something like that, but that was more shaman based. I think Splinter Graph, well, it has meme potential, and you're going to have some one-off situations where somebody gets a boar or something with charge. I think it's dead.
I really did like when they hit the Bewitched Guardian with Splinter Graft.
That was big.
I guess that was a big Guardian. I think it's going to be a lot like Tyrantus in the sense that if you can work it in, usually they're going to have a hard time getting rid of it. But I think it's going to be hard to do much with.
Okay.
The biggest problem with it is adds it to your hand, so you cannot use it to cheat it out with the Druid Quest.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. So next is Duskfallen Aviana. It's a 5 mana 3/7 on each player's turn. The first card played costs 0. So you play it, your opponent is going to have the first chance to play something for 0. And I think we saw how that worked in the live stream, and it didn't work well for the people playing it.
No.
This reminds me a lot. I'll be honest with you. This reminds me a lot of Millhouse Manastorm.
It's true. And here's the thing with Duskfall and Aviana. I don't think it's going to be good in the meta when Witchwood takes over with the current pool of cards that's in there. However, when the original Aviana card came out that was 9 mana to come out but made all of your minions 1 cost, people said, well, there wasn't any room for it because you only got 1 mana that turn and they're going to clear it. Well, that's when Kuhn came out. The I think it was the next set after that, and all of a sudden Aviana got play. So I don't think you're going to see Dustfall on Aviana this set be powerful, but maybe in one of the next 2 set releases this year, it'll have its limelight.
I tend to agree with Zeroshio. There's nothing in this set that I guess cries out, use me with this card. I don't see where it's an advantage to play it. And I mean, I could totally be missing something, but as of right now, this looks like one of those we can't fit it in the next set. So we're going to put it in this set and just let it marinate for a little bit before its true potential is realized.
Okay. We've got our 2 epics for this are Gloomstag, which is a 5 mana 2/6 taunt with Battle Cry. If your deck has only odd cost cards, gain +2/+2. So this is one of those even and odd mechanics. You know, I haven't had a chance to look at, what the 1, 3, 5, 7s look like for Druid to know how this is going to play out yet. But what do you guys think?
I think it'll be decent. The problem with the odd decks is that's the slot that lets you have the upgraded hero power. So to be honest, your upgraded hero power is going to have more use out of that deck than getting the +2/+2 on Gloomstag. The better way would be if you could recruit this out and cheat it out somehow. But if you cheat it out and recruit it out, it's only a 2/6. It's not a 4/8. So you don't want to put the recruit mechanics. Not to mention the recruit mechanics are all even costed anyways. So that wouldn't work out. It's going to take some time. Again, I think some of your odd and even decks are actually going to shine when the next set comes out. And this is an example of that.
I tend to agree with Zeroshio on this one. In Druid, odd feels really bad because you miss out on Wrath, you miss out on Swipe, you miss out on Ironwood, you miss out on
Oaken Summons, Wild Growth, Ultimate Infestation.
Yeah,
everything.
Everything right now that has defined Druid as a class up to this point, you immediately take away when you take away the even cards. So I don't feel like Druid is a strong enough set at the moment to go even. I could see it going, or to go odd. I could see it going even, but right now I can't see it going odd.
Okay. Our other one is Whispering Woods, which is a 4 mana spell. Summon a 1/1 wisp for each card in your hand. All right. This card, I feel, is very memey. You're looking for some sort of combo. I don't know what that is at the moment. I haven't had a chance to sit down and really dig into it. I'll be honest, I did not rate this card very high on our rating spreadsheet. What about you, Zeroshio?
I didn't rate it very high either. The best part about this card is the flavor text. It said we didn't actually fire the guy who named Dark Whispers. Uh, so because Dark Whispers text is we fired the guy that named this card. So that was funny. I think if this was last set, this card would be very powerful in the buff mechanics and all the board buffs, especially with Mark and Lotus. But in this set, with a lot of that going out from Mean Streets, I just don't see it having a good spot to have a board filled with one-ones, especially in the world of Warlock and Warrior, where they're going to be at. And we'll talk about more about that next week when we do those two classes. I just don't think they will be able to stay on the board.
Rasika?
In a druid world where you still have a lot of impactful 4-cost spells, I don't see this taking a slot. It's not better than Swipe. There's so many other 4-cost cards I would rather have in that slot that I feel like give a better chance to win overall. In order to unseat the 4 slot in Druid, you're going to have something pretty impactful, and this just doesn't cut it.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys, after looking at all the Druid cards, I believe the one I may have rated the highest and probably my favorite card is actually the common Ferocious Howl. 3 mana, draw a card, gain 1 armor for each card in your hand. You know, I've said since day one, for the last 20 years that I played Magic, that drawing cards is the most powerful mechanic you can have in a card game. And I feel like this card just is the best tool Druid got in this set. What do you guys think?
I would agree with you. I didn't rate any. The highest I rated any Druid card was a 3, and I did give Ferocious Howl a 3. I think of all the cards I gave a 3, I was closest to giving it a 4. But I think it's going to be a staple card. It'll be decent, but not in every deck, and not in every Druid deck. And it won't be that impactful when you play it. It won't have a huge high win rate for having the card in your hand. I think it's just a decent card. Overall, I just think Druid's decent to below average. I just don't think they don't have anything to shine. They needed something with Aya leaving the set and Kuhn leaving the set, leaving Standard. They needed something to stand out, and they didn't get anything.
Rasika?
I like this card against aggro. Early game, if you've gone second, you still have the coin. You've got enough cards in hand that the armor benefits you and perhaps buys you a turn to regain control. You go Ferocious Howl into Oaken Summons. You can probably stave off for a while, especially if you get the Golem. I feel like if you draw it much past turn 4 early, you're probably not going to play it again till late, and then at that point you probably want to play it on the back of the UI, and I don't know how viable that would be late game. So I like it. I don't love it. Okay. I think it's a good card. I think it will get better as we get the new sets. Once again, this card, I look at it and I think this is waiting on something. So.
Okay, I could get behind that. All right.
Now, before we leave Druid, I did see one other card that Versika gave a 4, Bewitched Guardian. I wasn't very impressed by this card, but do you want to tell us your reasoning on rating that so high, Versika?
So, Bewitched Guardian to me is. I like it in the same way that I like Twilight Drake. Twilight Drake has been a staple in a lot of mid-range decks since I've been playing Hearthstone. The fact that Druid struggles in ridding the board with early game minions, I feel like in a hand Druid or in a recruit style Druid, um, or sorry, in a hand Druid this is great. In a recruit style Druid, it's not, because if you cheat this on the board with Oaken, actually, does Oaken pull this?
No, Oaken Summons won't pull this.
Yeah, it won't
Bewitched
pull
Guardian is a 5-mana 4/1 taunt with the battle cry, gain 1 health for each card in your hand, just like the Twilight Drake,
Right.
except it's 1 mana more and it has taunt.
Right, and I feel like that early game taunt is important. One of the things that I was doing this last year with Druid is I was playing the 6 casting cost taunt minion, the Dark Arakoa, even though I wasn't playing Cthulhu, just because I needed time in that 5 to 8 range. I needed something big and beefy on the board, something with a big butt that could kind of protect what I was trying to do, and I feel like this is a very good card to pull that off. So I rated it pretty highly because I think it's not as flashy as some of the cards in this set, but I think it's a good, solid card that will see play because of where it fits in the overall curve.
Okay, cool. So let's move on now to the Hunter class. Here we have our 2 legendaries. First up, we have Emerus, who is a dragon. He's a 10 mana 8/8 battle cry. Double the attack and health of all minions in your hand. So, again, I didn't rate this card very high because I feel like it's so situational. It's late game, and then you have to hold it until you have the combination of minions or the minions you want specifically to be able to buff in your hand before you play it.
King Crush.
Yeah. So, I didn't. As I said, I didn't rate this card very high. What about you guys?
I rated it a 2. Now, a lot of communities rating it a 1, and I agree with you. The reason I gave it a 2 is because I think it will have niche decks, and I'm trying to push a dragon hunter. The problem with Dragon Priest is there were too many good, solid mid-range dragons, and the mechanic of putting these large dragons in your deck to have them in your hand as activators and play them late game is what they wanted out of the dragon mechanic. And Priest put it in more of a mid-range deck, where I think they're trying to push more of a control-y style hunter with a big burst at the end to get the win condition. A lot of people are saying that, obviously King Crush, 16/16 damage, that's the big whoop-de-doo. However, this also works really well with Leroy Jenkins and Faceless Manipulator for a 24-point combo. So there's potential with this, but there's setup. And I think that's why they liked the design of Emerus, because somebody sees Emerus down, they go, oh, next turn they're about to blast me. So they start putting up taunts or do whatever they can to heal out of range. For that, I like this card, but I don't think it's going to be top meta deck. It will definitely be I hate to say meme deck because I think it can be competitive, but it'll be a specific type of deck. Kind of like the Katharina Hunter is now.
Versika?
I can get behind that. I will say that when I look at Hunter in Witchwood in general, I feel like the Hunter's targeting the current priest and warlock meta. And one of the things right now about Hunter is you go to the late game against priest or warlock and you're just dead. I mean, outside of the carnivorous cube into King Crush, into Play Dead, it's you get late game and you're just getting outvalued. I feel like this Imrus in particular, but I feel like this set gives Hunter that little bit more back end control that perhaps it was missing. So it may not be a popular Hunter meta deck because everyone is used to Hunter being fast and aggressive. I don't feel like it's got the meat to be a mid-rangey Hunter, but I do feel like what you could do is you could get some of that early game aggression, apply the pressure, and then while they are recovering from the pressure, be building up for your late game push. I feel like that gives Hunter a legitimate late game option that it might not have had before, and puts Priest and Warlock into maybe doing things before they're ready to get out of that burst range.
Okay. Yeah. Next up, and this is I'm going to go ahead and say that I believe this is the first of the 4 legendaries we've looked at so far that is going to be playable regularly.
Yes.
And I think you're going to see this card a lot on the ladder with anybody playing Hunter, and that's Houndmaster Shaw. It's a 4-mana 3/6. Your other minions have rush. Not beasts, not dragons, just minions in general have rush. So they can go straight in and attack other minions. I like this card. I like it's a 3/6 body for 4 mana. I feel like that's good. And I think it's right in that sweet spot at 4 mana where you could drop the next card we're going to talk about, Toxmonger, and then a couple of 1/1 minions or 1 mana minions, and just eliminate big threats. So I think it gives Hunter some flexibility, and so far it's one of my favorite legendaries in the set. How about you guys?
I like this card. I gave it a 3 mainly because I think it's a staple in a deck, but it's not like overpowering or meta defining. I think it's just going to be a good utility card. Having this with things like Scavenging Hyena, or better yet, the new spells that Hunter got that does damage and summons a 3/3 minion or a 1/1 Mastiff or any of those, you kind of get double duty out of them. You'll do the damage with the spell, and then the minion will come out, and you can rush it to finish off that large minion or kill a second minion. I think this is really going to give birth to a true mid-range Hunter. In the past, mid-range Hunters pretty much were more towards the aggro base because of the hero power. But I think with this set, you're going to have a true tempo-style mid-range Hunter that gets value trades on the board, leaves solid utilities in their hand. Hunter's always been lacking card draw, and they didn't get card draw. But this is almost as good as card draw because it allows your cards to get 2 and 3 cards of value out of 1 card. Rasika, what do you think?
So, I think this card is going to be one of those cards that has to go. The moment it hits the floor, the moment it hits the board, if you don't get rid of it, you're staring down the barrel of something unfriendly. And there's another card in this set, and we'll talk more about this concept later. But I think Shaw is a good card at 3/6. It's got enough health that it's not easily gotten rid of. Your opponent is going to have to throw resources at it to get it off the board because, I mean, quite frankly, unless you silence it or polymorph it, to do 6 damage on turn 4 or 5, I mean, you're using a major removal spell. And if you leave it, it's going to be it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
If you leave Houndmaster Shaw on the board, you just don't get to have a board.
That's right.
And then Hunter, especially with Scavenging Hyena still around, and you got the new Valbrute Skitter. There's so many different ways Hunter can use the minions to control the board. It's ugly. So Houndmaster Shaw, I feel like, will go in virtually every Hunter deck, even if they're not playing the mid range, just to draw out removal.
Yeah.
And as a reminder to our listeners, we're just doing a broad scope over each class, and kind of the key cards we see are really good or really bad. We are going to talk about every legendary, but all the other shows are doing detailed descriptions of every single card, and we rather just give more focus on the cards that need to be discussed. Hunter as a whole is kind of lackluster. They're about middle of the ground for me. However, there are a couple good. Wing Blast is one. The community seems to really like it, and Wing Blast is a spell, 4 mana, that deal 4 damage to a minion. If a minion died this turn, it cost 1 instead of 4. So again, this goes towards the mid-range tempo style. I think it's good, but I honestly think Flanking Strike is going to. It would take the place of Flanking Strike, and I don't think it's as good as Flanking Strike. What both of you guys seem to really like that card. Versika, what do you think about Wing Blast?
I like Wing Blast because it allows me to only put 1 deadly shot in and be a little pickier with my deadly shot. So I'm not using it to replace Flanking Strike. I'm using it to replace one of my deadly shots, and it also works with Greymane. If I decide to go with an even Hunter deck, which is absolutely viable with the addition of Witchwood, that makes my Hunter hero power just 1 mana, and it allows me to rotate it in on those odd cycles. So every other turn, I'm hitting that hero power, and I think an even cost Hunter deck could be very powerful. And I think that it's powerful on the back of Wing Blast and Houndmaster
Shaw.
So in chat, Espo from Legend of the Innkeeper podcast says, "I've never had a minion die in Hunter." Said no one ever.
Exactly. Yeah, and he's right. Wing Blast will almost always only cost 1 mana.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's 1 mana to deal 4 damage to a minion. It's just insanely good. All right,
on the back of Unleash the Hounds, this card is amazing.
Yes.
So,
because it says minion die, so you could sacrifice in one of your 1/1 hounds to get this to cost 1.
Right.
It doesn't have to be an enemy minion that dies.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we move on to the next class?
Yes. Dire Frenzy.
Okay.
Dire Frenzy is a hunter spell, 3 mana. Give a beast +3/+3. Shuffle 3 copies into your deck with +3/+3. So, if you shuffle in, say, everybody's giving the example of the boar, a Stone Tusk Boar, which is a 1 mana 1/1 with charge, you now have 4 1 mana 4/4s with charge. Or you have a 1 in play and then 3 1 mana 4/4s with charge in your deck. That can be recruited out, that can be brought out via various different beast summonings. When you're getting cards out from your deck, there's also lots of good implementation for this for some of your more utility beasts that you want to have stay on the board longer, and then get multiple copies of them. So I'm really excited for this. There are some really good midline beasts that are coming in that can be hit by this effect and really boost up the power of your deck. Also, it gives a beast +3/+3. It doesn't say a friendly beast. And there are a lot of beasts in other classes that have been released with this set that you could target your opponent's beast, then kill it, but you get 3 copies of it with a +3/+3 buff to it. I like this card. It was almost a 5 for me, but I settled on a 4.
Okay. Versika, anything you want to add or another one you want to talk about?
No, I mean, Dire Frenzy is one of those that we're just going to have to wait and see. Um, I'm not sold on Beast Hunter just yet. Uh, but if it becomes a thing, I think Dire Frenzy becomes a thing alongside it, and it could be powerful.
All right. Moving on. We are talking mage now, and
Stay a while and listen, because this
I'm
one
going
may
to go
take
ahead
a
and
while.
straight up say I feel like mage may be the most powerful class in the set. Now that we've
I
seen
agree.
them all. So with that, our legendaries are Toki Time Tinker. She is a 6 mana 5/5 with a battle cry. Add a random legendary minion from the past to your hand. So, to preface this, what exactly does from the past mean? It will put a random legendary minion that is currently only available in Wild into your hand.
Exclusively wild. So Mean Streets
Exclusively
of Gadget
wild.
Sand and older.
Yeah, so you could get Ragnaros, you could get Sylvanas, you could get Rend Blackhand. I mean, there's a ton of legendaries that are available in Wild. You don't know. It's just going to be one of those completely random things. I think this card will be a lot of fun.
Now, it was clarified, if you play this in Wild, you will get any legendary.
Yes. So, thoughts?
I love this card. There's been stats done up on it, and only about a quarter of the legendaries from the pool are considered good, and about a third of the pool is considered bad. But that still leaves about 2/3 that are decent to good. Maybe a little less than 2/3, but more than half. I think this is going to make for some amazing Disguised Toast and Trollden videos. You're going to have some major board swings with this. A lot of pure randomness has kind of been taken a little bit out of the standard pool, with some of the major random stuff leaving, and some of the new stuff doesn't have as much randomness. This adds it to Mage. Mage is going to be totally different. You're not going to have the same style of mages, with Ice Block leaving and a lot of your utility spells going away and going into Wild only. This set says you're going to have a more minion-based mage that relies on getting spells from those minions, or getting utilities from or getting some minions from your spells. So it's more like a summoner style mage, and I like it. I dig it. I don't know how viable it'll be, but it looks like it's going to be very strong.
I'm going to disagree with you guys. I don't think Mage is the most powerful out of this set. And I think, much in the same way Druid took a hit and is bottom tier 2, top of tier 3, I feel like Mage is right there with it. And the biggest reason why is because all of the main archetypes of Mage are just gone on rotation. So everyone is going to have to figure out how to play Mage again, and the Mage mentality that has been present for the past 3 years is not the same Mage mentality that's going to win with this set. So I feel like if the player base adapts fast enough, that Mage will be playable and competitive. I think it will take some people off guard in tournaments. But I think as far as like the daily ladder grind, I don't see a lot of Mage happening. So focusing on Toki in particular, I think 6 mana 5/5 in the what I would consider the Blizzard turn, or the prep into Flamestrike turn, I don't see the value there. And I feel like even though the traditional Mage is sort of going to the wayside, I still feel like turn 6 and turn 7 are very impactful turns where Mage who typically can't fight for board presence early has to start retaking board presence, and that is usually on the back of clears. So I like her ability, but I think her stat line and her mana cost are out of place.
Okay, so here's why I think. Let's talk about this next legendary, and then I'll tell you why I feel like Mage is in a better place than people may think it is.
Well, first off, I'm craving a salad. Are you craving a salad?
No.
No.
Okay. Not an arugula salad?
No.
Go ahead.
All right, so the next legendary is Archmage Aurigal.
Arugula.
2 mana, 2/2. Whenever you draw a minion, add a copy of it to your hand. Okay, so here is where I think Mage is going to be okay. Because there is one archetype of Mage that is not rotating out, that is still going to be here, and because most of its key cards are based out of Journey to Ungoro. And that's Elemental Mage.
Yes.
Around Pyro, if you play Archmage into Pyros and then just start flooding the board with other elementals, there's just a lot of strong cards there. I feel like we'll be able to carry. Now it's not going to be, it's going to be a mid-range to control style mage, but it's not losing a whole lot as far as key cards for that deck. And I feel like Aurigal just strengthens that. And, I think we're going to get to see it coming in. It's probably going to be a tier 2 deck. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, the only thing about Aurigal that concerns me is the reliance on drawing. Obviously, there's lots of ways to draw, especially with the new cards that are in this set. But we learned with Alaneth, which was highly touted as one of the most powerful weapons because it allows you to draw 3 cards every turn, that all of a sudden your deck is gone. And Mage doesn't have an endless deck mechanic like Jade Idols have. So once you start committing to drawing 2, 3, sometimes 4 cards a turn, then all of a sudden you're on a clock. You have to beat your opponent. So I think you're right that there will be control aspects, but once they hit the switch with Archmage Arugula and really start doing the card draw engine to then also duplicate every card they draw. If they draw a minion, it's going to add a second minion. So they're going to have to empty their hand to fill it up very quickly to then at that point try to beat their opponent because they're going to be out of cards. So I think it's going to be a very high skill cap finesse deck. But I think for the players that can pilot that type of deck, especially in the legend ranks, it's going to be really powerful and effective. And I think you'll probably see it go to tier 1 really fast. And then as people start to emulate it and lose with it, you'll attrition will make its way because people will say they are losing with it because they haven't learned how to pilot it properly. While I think Mage will be one of the best classes in this set, I think it will be the highest test for skill cap. I'm excited for it, especially on the competitive level.
I hope you guys are right, but I just don't see it competing with Priest, Warlock. I don't even really see it competing with Rogue or Shaman. At this point, I would place it probably right below Paladin. So I'm going to put this out of the classes we're reviewing today. I'm probably going to put Mage right at next to last on what we're reviewing today. I think it's just slightly better than Druid. However, I do completely agree with you on Archmage Aurigal because I don't think it's a card you play on 2. In conjunction with cards like Curio Collector, Book of Specters, Intellect,
Keysmith, yeah.
Keysmith. There's there's so many draw mechanics in Mage that Erigul is going to be one of those cards where you have to set it up to get your value out of it in one turn, because if your opponent leaves it up for more than one turn, they're absolutely insane. So the card draws removal, hard removal. That makes it extremely valuable, and I mean, his ability is very impactful. So maximize it the turn you get it. It can help refill a hand without having to deep dive into the deck. Very powerful card. I'm sure it will see a lot of play. Great artwork too. Can't wait to see that in Golden.
You touched base on one card, Curio Collector, that we all seem to like. It's a 5-mana, 4/4 minion. Whenever you draw a card, gain +1/+1. And at 5-mana slot, that's very strong with all the card draw that is being implemented. And the other card that's kind of gotten a little highlight was Book of Specters. And it's a 2-cost made spell. Draw 3 cards. Discard any spells drawn. So you really want a heavy minion-based deck, but with Book of Specters, Curio Collector, and Archmage Arugula, I really think that that Mage can go far with that mechanic. Now, Avantes, you seem to also like some of the more secret-centric cards, like Arcane Keysmith, who is a minion that's 4-mana 2/2. Battlecry, discover a secret, put it into the battlefield. Do you believe that Secret Mage, even though it seems to be that Mage is going to go more minion based, do you think Secret Mage will be viable?
I mean, I look at this as a 1-mana 2/2 minion.
Okay.
That you're getting a secret in play. You get to choose one of 3. So, I mean, I love this card because of its mechanic, and it's a body in the field. So, you know, I just feel like that I felt like it was a stronger card than some of the others in the set. You know, overall, I didn't rate this set exceptionally well. I didn't feel like this set was very strong as a whole, but I like this card more than a lot of the other cards in the set. I
think the one thing that I think is important, and you kind of keyed on it, is it's a 1-mana 2/2, but it lets you discover a secret. So that means you could put this in a minion heavy deck, and you could still use secrets because it's not pulling a secret from your deck. It's discovering a secret. So you don't have to water down your deck with secrets.
Yeah. Exactly.
It offers a certain amount of versatility because you could be experiencing more early game pressure than you thought. So maybe you need a 3rd explosive runes, or maybe you've not drawn into your explosive runes yet, and you can get it off of the Keysmith. Or let's say that you're running into a longer game, and it's towards the end, and you really just need another turn. Drawing Keysmith on turn 11 isn't necessarily a bad thing either, because you put it into play and you can always get an ice barrier. So, I mean, there's or a vaporize. So things that you wouldn't normally put in your deck, now suddenly you have the versatility to pull out with Keysmith. And I think that makes it a great swing card, and something that shouldn't be overlooked.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Anything else you guys want to add to Mage before we move on?
I think Vex Crow is very powerful. 4 casting cost. It's a 3/3, so it's got a decent stat line. In a more spell centric Mage, whenever you cast a spell, summon a random 2-cost minion. In a class that typically struggles with early game board, this could be impactful in making it to the late game. So I think Vex Crow could be a very important card to a slower mid-range / control mage.
So I was looking at the quotes for these cards today, and Vex Crow, I'm paraphrasing, says something to the effect of, "Some say these crows mark the coming of the Doomsayer."
Nice.
Which is funny because Doomsayer's,
It's a 2-cost
2 mana,
minion.
two mana minion that destroys your board at the beginning of your turn. So, I found that funny.
Nice. Well played, Blizzard. All right, moving on to Paladin, and our two legendaries here are Prince Liam. He's a 5-mana 5/5 with the battle cry: transform all 1-cost cards in your deck into legendary minions. I don't know. I feel like, Paladin's big thing at 1 is that's where all their secrets live. And I don't know if randomly transforming all of your secrets into legendary minions is a trade I would be willing to make. Zeroshio, you're kind of our resident Paladin go-to. What are your thoughts on Prince Liam?
Prince Liam and Bolvar Fordragon are drinking buddies, and they are definitely drowning their sorrows and being some of the worst Hearthstone cards that exist. For some reason, Blizzard Team 5 really want to push this idea that Control Paladin needs secrets. The problem with Paladin secrets are they're not good by themselves. You need them in bulk. The only time that Paladin secrets have been good is when Mysterious Challenger put them all into play at one time. Having 1 or 2 at a time really isn't very advantageous or slow down your opponent enough as it does other secret classes like Hunter or Mage. For that reason, they're trying to give us a card that says, hey, put a bunch of secrets in your deck, and when you realize that you don't need them anymore, just turn them into something else. And I don't think that works for Paladin, because Control Paladin, to make Control Paladin work, you need all 30 cards working asynchronously. You want them playing off each other, a lot of synergies. You kind of want to tit for tat, back and forth, and you need those cards to work well. It's kind of like a well-oiled machine. And this throws a bunch of wrenches in your well-oiled machine. Prince Liam will not work in a Control Paladin. Is not fast enough for a mid-range Paladin. They don't really use secrets. And there aren't enough 1-mana spells that aren't secrets to justify even putting them in your deck. Overall, I think Paladin got the worst shake of the classes, except for maybe Druid. I think Druid's the worst, and Paladin, which is my bay, I've got almost 2,000 ladder wins with Paladin, and it is by far some of the worst cards I've seen, with the exception of one, and we'll talk about later, Silver Sword. Prince Liam's horrible.
Well, I think there's one important thing to note on Liam is that it's not all 1-cost spells. It's all 1-cost cards.
That's true.
So there is a world where I can see someone loading up with a bunch of 1-cost minions and using Liam to basically turn it into random awful buffet of legendaries, or it could be great buffets. It's like going to never mind, I'm not going to go there. So
it's like Prince Balcazar. When was Prince Balcazar ever give you anything that was consistently awesome? He didn't.
I think that this will see play. I don't think it will see competitive play. Very much a fringe card. I do think it'll see more play than Bolvar, but just barely.
I will likely craft him if I don't open him, and find a way to make him work like I did with Bolvar, like I did with Lanessa, which I think Lanessa will actually come to shine this set. I think I said last time that Lanessa wasn't good, but may be good the next set. And I believe this is a set that Lynessa is going to shine because of some of the underrated cards that are in Paladin this set that are going to make some of the past cards. That's why I think Paladin's going to work. Sound the Bells. We will definitely talk about Sound the Bells because I don't think it's as good as everybody else thinks, but I do like it. Well, I'll explain. We'll go ahead and go
talk
straight
about Glass
to it.
Knot first.
Yeah,
It's the other
let's go.
legendary.
Let's do Glass Knight first.
4 mana, 4/3, Divine Shield. Whenever you restore health, gain Divine Shield. So he's kind of like whenever you heal, he gets his shield back. So you can keep bringing it back.
It says whenever you restore health. It doesn't say whenever your hero restores health or when you're defending minion. Whenever you restore health. So there's been questions on Twitter and on Reddit about this, and it hasn't been clarified yet. But it is believed that if you have any of your effects on your turn that cause health to be restored anywhere, you could heal your opponent's face somehow, then it will get Divine Shield. There has been some play saying that maybe Bolvar will be good with this, where you're healing, you're getting the shield, you're losing the shield, you're getting the shield. And Bolvar and also the Sword of Sorrows or whatever, Sorrow Blade, whatever that really bad Paladin weapon is, it gets attacked for every time a minion loses Divine Shield. I don't think that will work. I'd like it to work, but there's too many things working harmoniously in a game of Hearthstone that you can't control your opponent's turn. So I don't think that would work at all.
Does this work with Benevolent Jinn?
Yes, it is a card on your side, and that was clarified. It does work with Benevolent Jinn. That was an example that was given on Twitter, but that's healing your face. Now you have to restore health. So if you're at full health and you have Benevolent Jinn out, it won't work. But if you're taking
did we lose Rag?
Rag Lightlord, we did lose Rag. Yes,
we did, didn't we?
Yeah. Old Gods, is that
it
right?
It was Whispers, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was Whispers or
But Rag would also do it. But if anything was to heal the board at all,
I was going to say life still counts, right?
Yes, life still does count as restored because those are your cards restoring health.
So there is a world where maybe this lives in a deck of Corpse Takers and
who knows.
This
is something that I'll try to make work because I play Paladin. That's what I do. But I'm not optimistic. Same as I was with the quests for Paladin. I wanted to make it work, but I wasn't optimistic, and sure enough, it didn't work.
All right.
So I can't wait for the quests now. We'll talk about that later, too.
Yeah. Go ahead and
real quick,
tell us about... Oh, go ahead for a second.
Before we go, because I know we probably won't touch on Hidden Wisdom, just sort of a gut feeling, keep an eye on Cathedral Gargoyle. I think Cathedral Gargoyle could end up being really good.
Cathedral Gargoyle is the epic minion, 2 mana, 2/2 battle cry. If you're holding a dragon, gain Taunt and Divine Shield.
Think about how good Righteous Protector has been, and how good Shielded Minibot was as a 2/2 Divine Shield, and Argent Protector for that matter.
I like it, and there are some good dragons that came out last set that work with weapons and whatnot, and they could have a place here. They were kind of low grade for kobolds, but might work well here. I like that, and also, would you say what was the other card? Ring the Bell or
Sound the Bells?
Sound the Bells.
Oh, Sound the Bells. Okay, Sound the Bells. We're gonna get right to that one. It is a 2 mana common spell that is Echo. Give a minion +1/+2. Now, obviously, this has implementation in a quest paladin, which I think Versika will probably want to talk about. But I will mention that I said Lynessa might have her day. This is the day for Lynessa, because the thing about Lynessa is you don't have to cast this on her. You just cast them on minions throughout the game, and then she gets all of the buffs that were put on there.
Correct.
So if
Right.
you're continually hitting this multiple times on minions, when she comes out, she's going to be beefed up.
Yeah.
And this may be where she is an inclusion, and I'm glad I have her.
Yeah, and I don't really need to say much about the quest because, I mean, that's what it is. You cast a certain number of spells on minions, and the quest goes off, and you get Galvadon, which is ridiculous. So, yeah, this sound the bells. And, I mean, if you'll remember, I said back when the quest came out, I was like, I feel like this is made for another time. Well, I feel like that time is now, so... If you're
Now-
going to see that quest happen, if you're going to see it ever mainstream, I feel like it happens now. If you don't see it in this rotation, I don't really see it becoming. I see it getting buried. So
Yeah. Now, I gave this a 2, and the main reason I gave it a 2 is, and if you want to see these, if you just want to become a patron over at patreon.com/heropower, you can join our Discord, and we open this up for all of the members of our Discord. And it's across multiple communities that Matt at Arms in. He's done a great job. But I gave it a 2 specifically because I think it will be in a niche deck, a buff paladin style deck. And that's really, it's going to be its own only true home, I believe. I don't think, because even though it's 2 mana for 1/2, I won't be in any of your faster paladin decks because you'll likely want to do it on turn 4 and you'll only get 2 copies of this, and then you're not developing another minion. That's also Call of Arms turn. So I don't expect it to be in a faster paladin deck, but I definitely think in a more mid-range to slower end paladin deck, a buff paladin deck, this is going to find a home, and it's going to be great.
Okay. And
So
real
real
quick.
quick.
Oh,
rebuke.
rebuke?
Were you gonna do rebuke?
No, I was going to do Silver Sword.
Yeah, I want to talk about both of those cards.
Okay.
Rebuke is the 2 mana common spell. Enemy spells cost 5 more next turn,
All right.
which
Let's-
we've seen from Lotheb.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on this, Forsika?
I think part of what made Lotheb so powerful was that you put the 5 body on the board as well. But I still think versus control, I feel like this is Shaman's. This is what Shaman's been waiting for, to lock a control deck down and deliver
You
the
Paladin?
final blow.
I'm
sorry.
Paladin, right?
Yeah, but I feel like Shaman, Priest, Warlock, all of them have healing spells that later on can just take them out of range of a Paladin. I feel like Rebuke says, okay, I'm taking this game next turn. You play Rebuke. Now what you got, you know?
Yep. You want to talk about Silver Sword? I don't think Rebuke's great because of the lack of the body, but it might find niches in control decks. I pretty much agree there. What do you think? Do you have any thoughts on that, Avantes, or do you want to go on to Silver Sword?
I think Rebuke is good. I think it, like Versika pointed out, Rebuke is a card you're going to hold. It's going to go in your hand, and you're not going to play it until you're at that moment where you go, I win next turn, as long as you can't do something crazy. Rebuke, go. Oh, you can't cast half the cards in your hand. I just win. And that's where Rebuke is going to be. It's not going to be a card you're going to play early. That card's just going to sit in your hand until it's time.
Combo Priest. Sorry. Something throat right here.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So why don't you tell us about Silver Sword real quick?
Silver Sword is a rare paladin weapon that is 8 mana. Okay, 8 mana, 3 attack, 4 durability. After your hero attacks, give your minions +1/+1. Now, this is all your minions on the board.
Dude, Paladin.
Any kind of mid-range paladin, Murloc Paladin's losing a lot of tools to stick around, but I believe that there's some utility minions that will stay on the board with Divine Shields. Divine Shield Paladin will work well. You put on a bunch of minions with Divine Shield, they clear all the Divine Shields off and maybe get a few minions, and then next turn you can buff them all up again. This is 8 mana for a weapon, but it is a 3/4 weapon. Now, people compare this to Vilespine Slayer, which is 7 mana for a 4/3 weapon.
You mean Vine Slayer?
Yeah. The
Vilespine Slayer is a 3/4.
Yeah, that's right. The Vilespine sword. It you can tell how often it's even in my deck, and I don't play it that often. It summons 2 1/1 recruits whenever you attack with it. It's got the same attack distribution. Vine Cleaver. That's it. I remembered. This brain's working. Vine Cleaver is a 7 mana 4/3 weapon that summons 2 Silverhand recruits every time you attack. So it's 1 mana less, same stat distribution, but you're probably going to get a lot more +1/+1 buffs than you're going to get 1/1 minions off of it. So I think the extra mana is worth it. I think Silver Sword is going to be great.
But only in conjunction with the Weed Cleaver, right?
With the Weed Cleaver, the Weed Whacker, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
I'm calling that card Weed Whacker from now on.
I think only in the South do we call it edge
trimmers, weed whackers.
Edge trimmers, weed whackers.
Look,
yeah.
I'm going to give this card as many different names as I can just to see which one you come up with the next time we talk about it. Every time I beat you, every time we talk about it, I'm going to call this card something
My
different.
brain is not firing 100% today, so bear with me.
All right.
The Vine Cleaver and Silver Sword, I think, are on the same power level. I don't think you'll run both, but you'll definitely run one or the other.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, because for a class we find pretty low on the totem pole, we should spend a lot of time talking about this. All right. Next up, Rogue. So our legendaries here are Tess Greymane. She's an 8 mana 6/6 with a battle cry. Replay every card from another class you've played this game. Targets will be chosen randomly.
Mind blown. I love this card. I'm not a big Rogue player. I realize it'll take probably a level of deck building that I'm not good at to make the perfect deck for this, so I'm going to net deck it. I think she is going to be amazing. Of course, in a mirror match with Rogue, she'll be horrible. She'll be a 8 mana 6/6, but in every other match, she's going to excel.
Okay.
I love her.
Rasika?
I like Tess, but I'm afraid at 8, I'm afraid there's just not going to be real time to use her effectively, because I feel like I'm gonna want to use her in conjunction with something else. So I'm hopefully optimistic about getting ready to use her. Her ability is going to be powerful if you're playing the right kind of rogue deck, and I think she'll see play early, wane off, and maybe come back next set.
I think she is something else. She is all that in the bag of chips. She is a full foot long, sub with a drink for no additional charge. She is a furnished apartment. She comes with everything. You need nothing else. Well, I mean, you need utility cards, but she's awesome.
Yeah,
in that turn.
So you think she is the archetype?
I think she's obviously you're going to have cards in the deck to support her, but on that turn that you play her, you shouldn't need to play her with something else. She is a Yogg. She is your win condition.
you misunderstood what I was saying.
Okay.
It's on turn 8. She requires too much setup on turn 8, I'm not looking for what she has to do. Like, I'm not looking for that ability.
That's fair. Do you think
there's so much setup that would have to go into it? I'm just not at 8 mana. That takes up that whole turn, and it's just not, to me, what she's giving you is probably not going to be worth spending turn 8 on her.
Do you think that she would have been more suited as a 10 cost with maybe a better stat distribution?
I think yeah, I do.
Okay. Now, there was clarification, and they asked if she was going to work like Yogg, where if she gets removed, from the game, or silenced, or put back your hand, or anything, will she stop like Yogg? And they said no, because Yogg Saron cast all those spells, and when he was gone, then they stopped. Where with Tess Greymane, it specifically states replay every card from another class you played this game. So it's going to go through the entire list, even if it removes her in some way.
Okay.
Or silences her.
Cool. All right. The other legendary we got is the Faceless Collector. 3 mana, 2/2, Echo, Battle Cry, add a random legendary minion to your hand.
For clarification, it's the Face Collector.
Yeah.
Not Faceless Collector. He's got lots of faces.
Just call it, for those of you that watch, Game of Thrones, just call it Arya Stark. Go.
There was also something like this in Avatar: Last Airbender.
Yeah.
This card is awesome. I gave it a 4, but Versika gave it a 5, so I'm going to let Versika say how awesome this is. He's probably going to say the same thing I would.
Well, I mean, I look at this card and I see so much potential. The Echo with the 3 cost, combined with a class that is known for pulling stuff back to your hand, used in conjunction with Shadow Step, and if later on you find ways to play it, get it back to your hand. Like, you can play it as a way to round out a mana curve, Shadow Step it back to your hand, and then the next turn, play it again. It's one of those things where it's just kind of like, the way Rogue manipulates how something hits the board is just, it's so fantastic anyway. I just see Face Collector loading up your hand full of legendaries, and that's just extra cards. I mean, turn 3, typically, unless I have something, I'm going to SI Agent. Now that Shaku's gone, this is the perfect card. You lay it down, you get a legendary, add it to your hand, and then you just Shadow Step it back, and the next time you cast it, it's only 1. So, yeah. You could do it again on turn 6 and do it, in conjunction with something else and still get the Echo off. It's the mana cost and the stat line. You're not expecting this minion to lay around. It's Battle Cry is what makes it so good. So you combine that Battle Cry with Echo and the way Rogue manipulates hitting the board and bouncing it back, and this card just seems to me like it can be really fun and really powerful. So,
okay. Do you think this could revive a Quest Rogue?
Yes.
Because actually,
I think this fits really well in a Quest Rogue deck.
Obviously, the thing about Quest Rogue is, once you finish the quest and get a minion out 5 times, which you can do pretty easily with Face Collector with Echo, combination of Echo and bouncing, because even though Echo cards go away at the end of your turn, if you bounce the card back to your hand, you will still have that physical card in your hand, even if it was an Echo version of it. With that, it'd be easy to do the quest. The biggest problem with Quest Rogue in today's meta is there's so many tools to be able to clear and exhaust the Rogue of all their minions. If they have no more cheap minions to put out, they have no more 5/5s. But Face Collector not only helps you accomplish your quest to allow you to have those 5/5 minions, it also gives you legendaries to also play in conjunction to also manage the board and not just play solitaire like a lot of people say, playing Quest Rogue is. You're only just playing a one-sided game. You don't even care what your opponent does. Having good legendaries come into your hand, if they're good, could actually turn the tide. If you get something like a Karen Bloodhoof, that would be really good utility to have in conjunction of trying to get your quest done or finish off your opponent.
Okay. Any other rogue cards that really jump out to you guys that you want to briefly discuss?
Really, I've got 3. I wanted to pay attention to Mist Wraith, which is a 4 mana 3/5. Whenever you play an Echo card, gain +1/+1. I feel like Rogue is going to abuse Echo a little more than some of the other classes. So I feel like Mist Wraith is another one of those cards where even though it may not be super intimidating when it hits the board, you can't afford for it to get out of control. So I feel like it warrants removal. And then the other 2 cards that I wanted to talk about were Pickpocket and Cheap Shot. Both of those are 2 casting cost Echo cards. Pickpocket, add a random card to your hand from your opponent's class, and Cheap Shot, 2 damage to a minion. Both of those can be used in conjunction with Mist Wraith to really just punish you for not getting rid of it.
Yeah, and the only other card I want to talk about those cards as well as Blank Fox. It's a common minion, 3 mana, 3/3, decent stat line. Battlecry, add a random class card to your hand. It's kind of like a class card to your hand from your opponent's class. That's pretty much Swashbuckler.
Yeah.
Swashbuckler
Cubed.
had its heyday because of, Cubed. Yes, 3/3. Yeah, for 3 mana. It had its heyday because of patches, but in this type of meta, and a lot of these cards in like the Thief Rogue, that they kind of teased would be a thing in Kobolds and really wasn't, now really is going to be a thing in Witchwood. It's going to be your primary rogue archetype, and Blink Fox is going to be right up there in front, feeding Tess Greymane.
I agree. I really like Blink Fox. Mm-hmm. All right. So moving on to the last class we're going to talk about this evening. The Shaman. So this is the one class in the entire set that is getting a new hero card. We've talked about this briefly. That hero card is Hagatha the Witch. 8 mana, gain 5 armor, battle cry, deal 3 damage to all minions. And she gives you a new hero power. Mm-hmm. So, Versika, what are your thoughts on?
Well, the hero power is it's a passive hero power, mm-hmm. And anytime you cast a minion, you get a random shaman spell in your hand. Is that correct? I think that's right.
Yes.
I have it up.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think on that, Versika? Because you're kind of our shaman expert.
I like Hagatha. I'm worried about people figuring out the right time to play her, because turn 8 may not necessarily be when you want to play her. I think Shaman is going to shift into a more control archetype, which is fantastic for me. But I feel like, Healing Rain is one of the more powerful healing spells in the game. You got Volcano and Lightning Storm, which help you control the board. I feel like you will get time to play Hagatha based on, I was kind of waiting and holding back judgment to see what all the other classes got. I don't feel like Witchwood sped up the game, so I feel like the more late mid-range to control decks are going to be more prevalent, so I feel like Hagatha is definitely going to have a place. Her battle cry of dealing 3 damage to all minions is fantastic. I like her, but once again, it's when do you get rid of the totems and switch over to the passive? That's going to be, you've got to figure that out.
And so that's really the only notable legendary in Shaman. There really wasn't another one.
All right, now.
I'm trying to make See Me No More in chat go crazy
No,
because
no triggering the viewers.
he's
Right.
really excited over this next one. Jabberwocky, what's it called?
Shutterwalk.
Stutterwalk. Okay, I get that when my knee starts acting up on me.
So the Shutterwalk is a 9-mana 6/6. If I could mute Zeroshio remotely, I would. It's a battle cry is repeat all other battle cries from cards you played this game. Targets chosen randomly.
And again, like Tess and unlike Yogg-Saron, if this causes Shutterwalk to leave the board, it will still continue until all of the battle cries have been exhausted.
So, if you did not watch the Day 9 Ben Brode live stream,
Watch it.
you really need to watch that to kind of get a handle for how terrifying Shutterwalk can be.
Best card in Paladin.
Yeah, right. Right. And we'll talk about the card that enabled that to happen next week. But Shutterwalk, I feel like Yogg-Saron, I feel like Shutterwalk is going to be a little more contained because it's home in Shaman. You're going to have to find a way to steal it. But I think Shutterwalk is going to be impactful enough that it is going to define much of what Shaman does in this next cycle.
The big thing on Shutterwalk that I want to note is a lot of people are going to see this, want to craft it right away, and throw it in Shaman and go nuts with it. The big thing about Shutterwalk is you really need to have a good synergy of battle cries in your deck that are going to work well together. On the stream, it worked well, mainly for Day 9's opponent, but the one big interaction that everybody was shocked about is Serenite Chain Gang. Because if you play Serenite Chain Gang and then the board's cleared the next turn and you play Shutterwalk, Shutterwalk will repeat Serenite's Chain Gang's battle cry. Now, Serenite's Chain Gang doesn't summon another Serenite Chain Gang. It summons a copy of this card. So you will get a second Shutterwalk immediately. So that's 2 6/6s if you couple it with a Serenite Chain Gang anywhere during the game before it. And if there's another Serenite Chain Gang, you'll get 3 and so forth. And so you can fill your whole board up with 6 6s, which that alone makes this card extremely powerful for pretty much. Yeah.
Makes it terrifying.
Not to mention all the other possibilities like Gorgonzola, Zola the Gorgon, to get more copies of your Shutterwalks, to then do it again the next turn. Those type of things can really just really wreck the world. Where I think this is going to shine is in this perfectly designed decks, possibly an elemental synergistic type of deck with Shutterwalk. Now, if you get things like Kalamos that picks a range of discover effects, it will pick them for you. It won't always pick the same effect. So if there's any targets had to be chosen or selections, it will pick them at random. But
it
other
does
times,
it in the order they happened, in the same order every time.
yes.
Important to note.
At first they said it was random, and then as the stream went on, we saw it was kind of proven visually that it happens in that order. Unlike Tess Greymane, which does them in a random order. I think this is going to be really neat to see happen in something like Priest or Rogue that gets Shutterwalk stolen and gets copies of it. But again, that's a Trollden episode. I think Shutterwalk is an awesome card. I almost gave it a 5 because I don't think it'll be meta-defining, but it will have its place.
So I want to point out another card in this class, and that is Blazing Invocation. At 1 mana, discover a Battlecry minion like the Shutterwalk.
Yep.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Or anything it gets will empower the Shutterwalk. So it's
Exactly.
a win-win for any
Yeah.
Shutterwalk deck.
Exactly.
And a lot of people say 9 mana for a 6/6, while the crazy, Clown Fiesta that is his battle cry might be beneficial. The stats are horrible. Well, a lot of your battle cries are going to beef up those stats. So it's amazing.
It's gonna be fun.
It's going to be crazy.
All right, Versika, any other shaman cards you want to talk about before we wrap up?
Yeah, actually, there's 3 more I wanted to talk on. We already talked about Blazing Invocation, so that took care of one of them. Bog Shaper. I know a lot of people feel like there's not enough impactful shaman spells to make good use of Bog Shaper's ability, but a 4/8 for 7, that's pretty good in Shaman land, and I feel like the body is a nice body, and in a control shaman late game, you're going to be casting things like Healing Rain, and I feel like you can get a little bit out of his ability, but it's more about filling a gap.
So, about his ability, what is Hagatha's passive hero power again?
Right, you get a spell when you cast a minion. Bog Shaper, you get when you cast a spell, you draw a minion from the deck.
Right.
That's important to note. You're drawing the minion from your deck, but it still allows you to thin the deck.
They kind of synergize pretty well, though.
They do. If you leave Bog Shaper on the board, I feel like you're going to get punished. So please, if you don't respect Bog Shaper, come and play me. I will be happy. Be happy to play.
You heard it here first, UHL. Bog Shapers everywhere.
Shush. The next one I wanted to talk about was Totem Cruncher. And
I wanted to talk about this one.
I know a lot of people are kind of down on this because they feel like, early game you're putting out totems. You're not wanting to destroy them, you're wanting to use them for something. Yes, you're right. But I'm not thinking about the totems created from your hero power. I'm thinking about the totems like Manatide Totem and a Flame Tongue Totem, but specifically Manatide Totem, because while I'm a huge fan of Manatide Totems, there have been times where Manatide Totem has outlived its usefulness and I can't get rid of the dang thing. So that doesn't happen often.
And your opponent won't get rid of it because they want you to draw.
Exactly. So I think Totem Cruncher may be a one-of to fill a spot maybe where I've got a legendary in there and I don't have another one-off minion that I feel is going to be viable. 4 mana for a 2/3. It's not a bad stat line. It does have taunt, so early game taunt, if you're experiencing early game pressure, maybe the turn before you're hoping for a Stoneclaw Totem and you end up with a Searing Totem. Well, Totem Cruncher comes down, eats the Searing Totem because there's no way your opponent's going to kill the Searing Totem. They'll just go face. So now your Totem Cruncher becomes a
4/5.
4/5 for 4 with taunt, and that's a whole lot better stat line. So I feel like it's going to have its place early. It's probably not something you want to draw late, and it does provide a way to get rid of that Manatide Totem when it outlives its usefulness.
I think you totally missed the most important part of this card, and that's because it is just so cute. I want one. I want a plush Totem Cruncher. If the Blizzard store at BlizzCon does not have a plush Totem Cruncher, I'm rioting.
Okay,
That's
so the last card that I wanted to talk about was Zap.
Yes.
Okay, so some interesting things to note about Zap. Number 1, it costs 0. That's fantastic. Number 2, it deals 2 damage to a minion. Early game, there's that Knife Juggler that you really need to get rid of. And let's say that the last turn you played something like a Spirit Wolves. So the next turn you're not really going to be able to cast much, and then your opponent plays that sticking knife juggler. This has I kill knife juggler written all over it, so I feel like Zap is fantastic. The only thing that would make Zap better is if it had Echo.
Yes.
Man.
That was what I was thinking. And I think it wouldn't be too far-fetched for it to have Echo, because essentially you're paying 1 mana the next turn for it.
Right.
So, I mean...
And to be able to overload yourself for 10.
Yeah.
Be pretty fantastic.
I mean, obviously, there would have to be an end to it.
Well, it would have to be 10. You wouldn't be able to overload past the 10.
Yeah.
But, most of the time now, there's enough overload in Shaman where playing the Snow Fury John is worth putting it in the deck. This almost makes Unstable Elemental. Did I get that card name right? I can't
Unstable Evolution?
No. It's the 2/4 that gets plus when you overload.
Yeah.
And it's past my bedtime, so I'm already whiffing on the name. But anyways, I mean, it's got its uses, but the biggest thing about Shaman is managing your overload. And most of the time, your opponent will wait to put you into an overload situation and then lay a key card.
Unbound Elemental.
Unbound Elemental, yeah.
That's it.
They'll lay a key card, and a lot of times you're just missing the necessary damage or ability to get rid of it. Well, if you got 2 zaps sitting in your hand, that's 4 damage to something. Most of the time, that's going to be enough to either get rid of it outright or clear it with the combination of the zaps and minions on board. So I think Zap is going to be a super versatile card, and I think you'll see it in almost every Shaman deck.
All right. Awesome. Well, that gets us through the first 6 classes. Next week, we will touch on Priest, Warlock, and Warrior, as well as the neutral cards. Of course, by this time next week, we will have these cards in hand, and so we will be able to talk a little more about their actual versatility and function in the meta. So thank you all for joining us.
Speaking of having the cards in our hand and playing with them, are we going to tell them about Friday?
Sure. Let's go ahead. So first of all, let's talk about tomorrow. Avantes, are you streaming your pack openings?
Probably, but it probably will not be until tomorrow evening sometime.
General
Same
time?
here.
Probably 9 or 10 o'clock tomorrow night.
What about you, Zeroshio?
I will probably try to do it as close to getting off work, so I will probably start sometime between 5:30 and 6:30. I have to work a full day because my coworker is having a major surgery and will be out for a few days. So I unfortunately have to work, but I will definitely be streaming my pack openings tomorrow evening around dinner.
Awesome. I'm trying to stream mine tomorrow as well, and it looks like mine is going to hit right in between the two of you. So we could have back-to-back-to-back Hero Power card openings, which would be pretty cool. And then on Friday night, around 8 p.m. Eastern, join Zeroshio and I, and hopefully Matt at Arms, if we can convince him to join us, to do a special edition of Alchemy Lab, which is where we take the new cards and we start theory crafting decks with them. And then hopefully if we get some that we like, we'll take them out on the ladder and see what we can do with them. We've done this one other time. It was Avantes and I. You had to miss that one.
Yeah, I had a funeral to go to. Yeah.
And
I hated missing it too.
Avantes will have to miss this one because of prior obligations. So he gets a taste of his own medicine, I guess. But yeah,
Cool.
super excited. I've got my lab coat ready. I've got steampunk goggles that'll be here tomorrow. Pretty excited.
They don't make lab coats big enough for me. Omar, the tent maker, is a little busy. Usually he's who makes my clothes for me.
I'll just steal a tablecloth.
I do have goggles. Actually, yeah, I'll be set up. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I have no doubt.
I'm a LARPer. I got it.
I know. I was worried about keeping up.
I have to dig it out, but yeah, I know where it's at.
All right, so yeah, I guess that pretty much does it for that. We're excited about getting that up and going, and yeah, can't wait.
All right, gang. That's going to do it for us this week. Thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions or comments about the show, feel free to shoot us an email at heropowerpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from you guys, and as you guys have seen, we will love to read or play your email live on the show. If you haven't done so, hit that subscribe button below on YouTube, and give us a follow on Twitch to be alerted when we go live. If you're interested in joining our patron-only Discord or being a part of the community, you can find all that information over at patreon.com/heropower. If you're not doing anything, stick around. We're going to send you guys over to a friend of ours who just started his stream. So we're going to send you over to our friend Major Death, and we will see you guys all again next week.
Bye, guys. Enjoy Major Death. He's awesome. And don't forget to use your hero power. Forgot.